Wrong one. Hold on. Here we are. Here we are. Hello. 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 Hello, folks. Yeah. Folks, the YSL RICO just concluded. It's gone. It's out. And here's a new one. Oh, yes, it is the Cash Out, the rapper from Atlanta. It's a new RICO trial, folks. It's a new RICO trial. And you know some of the players. You know, it's led by Prosecutor Love. Yes, the same as the lead prosecutor, who was an absolute see you next Tuesday for 2 years straight in that trial. You might recognize some of the attorneys. Who knows? Who knows? You might recognize some of the people sitting beside Miss Love in this trial, because it's a RICO trial, and it's Fani Willis' favorite thing to do, because with it, it's a more vague set of rules when it comes to admitting evidence, when it comes to hearsay rules. So she loves that. Now, Cash Out, also known as John Michael Hakeem Gibson, is the main charges are trafficking a person for sexual servitude, rape, aggravated assault, aggravated backdoor entrance. Sorry for being vague, but welcome to YouTube and stuff. Not much I can do about that. And of course, violation of the Georgia RICO Act. Because the claim is he did this in furtherance of an illegal racketeering organization that supposedly used deception and coercion to recruit women into commercial. Well, they got women to prostitute themselves, according to the state. Now, I have very, very limited information about this. I didn't think it would start until July. Apparently, I was wrong. And I was on the fence, because July and then maybe a month and a half of trial, all of a sudden we are closing in on the YNW Melly retrial in September. But since it starts now already, so even if that 1 month and a half of trial becomes 2 months, 2.5 months, it will still be done. That is what I say now. That is what I say now. I have no idea. Yeah, folks, I'm jumping right into a new RICO trial. Hopefully, me covering the YSL RICO, the Young Thug RICO trial, will help you guys understand more what is going on. Hopefully. But we don't know, because it is Prosecutor Love who is the lead prosecutor in this case. Today, and it just concluded, was the opening statements. So that is what the frick is going on with my... There, that's better, that's better. So we are going to take a look at what's going on in this trial. And thank you to Fox 5 Atlanta. I've been restreaming from their channel before, and they don't strike or copyright or anything. So kudos to you. So if you want to see this without my yapping mouth, you go to Fox 5 Atlanta and watch it without my commentary. All right, folks. All right, folks. Are you ready? Here we go.
RICO Act, rape, aggravated sodomy, trafficking a person for sexual service.
That this is the judge reading the charges. I'm going to skip directly into the opening statements. And it's to nobody, well, to my surprise, it is not Prosecutor Love who is conducting the opening statements. All right, let's go.
His credibility. Your observations of the witnesses during their testimony can be vital to your determination of the believability of their testimony. The notes that you take are for your use only. Ladies and gentlemen, do not be the notes.
All right. Here we go. Show is on the road again, folks. The show is on the road.
Promises of love, promises of safety, promises of a better life, promises to level up.
And of course, the prosecutor is allergic to microphones.
Promises. You will learn that there were promises given in this case. They were cloaked in profit, cloaked in greed. In their arrogance, predators target the weak who are caught in the schemes they devise. Their eyes watch in secret for their victims like rattlesnakes hidden in rocks. They lie in wait seeking.
Okay, from the get-go, she's quoting this must be a prodigy of Prosecutor Love, who in the YSL trial quoted the Younger book. I don't know what she here is quoting, but it's equally cringe.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that is what this case is about. This case is about these defendants. These defendants who built a proverbial house, if you will, a business on the backs of young women through the lure of their leaders' notoriety. Good afternoon, my name is Ernell Winfrey, as I stated earlier. I, along with my co-counsel, Chief Deputy District Attorney Adrian Love, Deputy District Attorney Grant Booth, represent the state of Georgia. First, I want to thank you for your patience during the arduous task of jury selection, and I thank you in advance for your service today. As you see the evidence unfold in this case, you may see witnesses that may not be in chronological order. Don't be alarmed. Just stay with us to the very end. It'll all make sense. The players. Who are the players? John Michael Hakeem Gibson, also known as Cash Out. You will learn that he is the leader of this organization. You heard the word enterprise. It's just a group of people doing criminal acts for money in this case. You will learn that he's the one who set up plays and dates through cell phones, who lured girls in through his notoriety, who promised love and other things to get them to comply, who then turned coercive toward the end. Linda Smith, also known as Malika Benny, also known as Mama Cash Out. You will learn that she is the mother of John Michael Gibson. And you will also learn all of her involvement, even including being a manager of sorts, even making clothes for girls to wear as they sold themselves. Tyrone Taylor, also known as Brewski. You will learn that he is a cousin of Cash Out, John Gibson, and you will learn of his involvement. He was like a recruiter. You'll learn that he was trying to be close to someone who's famous to meet somebody. You'll learn that he got involved with a young girl he never even knew before, with the promise of a safe place for her to lay her head. And you'll learn of his involvement with other witnesses in this case. The house that Cash cash built literally and proverbially. It was built on exploitation, built on girls who were vulnerable. During the course of this trial, you will hear evidence about a criminal enterprise. Now that's a legal term. Don't get confused about that. Like I said, it's just a group of people committing crimes for profit. They organize themselves and they work together to do it. This organization works in the shadows. They also work in plain sight. They built it by exploiting others, exploiting young women, fueled by deception and coercion, especially young women, driven by profit and greed,
Hi, Dave.
orchestrated by each of them. It was a criminal conspiracy that preyed on vulnerable young women for the purpose of making money. This case is about manipulation. It's about control, mental manipulation. It's about isolation. This case is also about violence. Now, you've heard at the beginning of the trial all these different counts. You've heard racketeering, you've heard RICO. RICO is just a pattern that we're going to show that they use to do these criminal acts. Several criminal acts they use to advance their organization to make money. The evidence will show that they operated in a group. You will hear about trafficking a person for sexual service. You will hear about pimping, pandering, tampering with evidence, obstruction. All of these criminal acts operated in concert to show that they operated together. That's all RICO is. You will hear from survivors, women who were groomed, women who were isolated and sold. You will see records and messages, financial transactions, witness testimony, victim testimony, all calculated and designed to profit off of human suffering. You will also hear from expert witnesses in this case. Specifically, you will hear from an expert witness whose name is Mary Beth Nelson. She is a witness of human trafficking, and she will give you education and provide the dynamics of sex trafficking and to debunk the big myths about trafficking. She'll debunk the myth about sex trafficking being the proverbial white van that runs around and snatches women and children off the street and sells them into sex slavery. She'll talk about it being up close and personal and intimate. She'll explain to you the nomenclature or the verbiage used in commercial sex so you'll understand when the evidence comes out what is being said and what it means. You'll hear from DNA experts, and it's up to you to judge the credibility and the believability of all the witnesses, to include DNA experts, and they will provide their findings. So, who are we really talking about here? This case centers around victims. And you heard many names at the beginning of the initial questioning when you all were sitting in the general audience. You will learn about Jasmine Brown. You will learn that she's from Delaware, was a ward up the state, meaning she didn't have connected family. You will learn that her first play was a violent rape set up by her trafficker, John Michael Hakeem Dixon. You will learn that she ended up getting out of that situation by some brave law enforcement folks who stepped in and saw her and helped her get out. And it was from her disclosure that all the global were able to find other survivors and victims to bring these defendants to justice. You will learn about Jordan Adams, who was also a vulnerable young woman who had gotten kicked out of her home and was on the streets of Atlanta. She ran into Tyrone Taylor, also known as Brewski, who promised her a safe place to lay her head that night at a hotel on Hilton Industrial Boulevard. Unbeknownst to her, she's raped and she is sodomized. You will learn that Mr. Taylor, defendant Taylor, he invited cash out over to have.
All right, my monetization is out the window for this trial, it seems.
You will learn she was also then put out on the street to go and sell herself. You will learn about Jessica McQuarrie, who's from Indiana, and she was involved with cash out during the early years. Dominique Lewis-House, you'll learn about her. Talicia Dewberry, Frederica Spencer, Talithia Wright, Chantori Tolbert, Diamond Irvin. You will learn that while each of them found themselves in this heinous situation, the one common thread is that while they suffered, they survived. They were robbed of their dignity and cloaked in shame. You will show that the defendants in this case used threats of harm, physical harm, psychological abuse, financial control, and drugs to trap their victims. And we will demonstrate that this organized group had a command structure, specific roles, specific rules, but the product in this case was human beings. Human beings used over and over and over again. You will learn how Cash Out and his mother, Mama Cash Out, and the cousin Rooster, this is all in the family, and how they work together in order to obtain this goal. This goal was to make money, motivated by money. The enterprise, it used tactics designed to recruit.
Yeah, folks, I must admit here, the charges are really, really, really bad. But it's Fani Willis. It's Prosecutor Love. I would assume it is a Fustercluck. They will present Fusterclucks. They will be bad. I'm going to assume that. But, folks, as in every trial I cover, if they prove to me beyond a reasonable doubt these things actually happened, then it should be a conviction. Now, knowing what I know about Prosecutor Love and her, I mean, I don't think she has the ability to not misconduct. But you never know. You never know.
Women, designed to control women, designed to exploit young women. Some of these women were often desperate. For the purpose of commercial sex, this is what they were obtained for. They lured them through a pattern of systematic plans. All of this, again, to gain money. The victims were groomed, isolated from their families, and coerced. And the people sitting behind this operation, they knew exactly what they were doing. The house that they built, the foundation is greed. The backs of the young women that made the money for them, they had no control of the money. Some of them subject to sexual violence, some of them subject to physical violence, all of them subject to psychological violence. Now, there's something important you will hear in this court. Two of the co-defendants, individuals who were once part of this very enterprise, will take the stand and they will testify for the prosecution. They will tell you what they saw, they will tell you what they did, and they will tell you what these defendants did. The witnesses were not promised anything in return, no deals, no promises, no favors. They are coming forward because the truth matters. And because they know what happened, they know it must be brought to the light. Their testimony will be of Kiera Adams. You will learn that she's been involved with Cash Out from even early on, since about 2014 to about 2022. Intimately involved with the inner workings and dealings of this organized way of committing crimes. She will describe to you in detail all that she did, her part in it, and all that they did, and their part in it. You will also hear from Deanna Sanders. She was in a relationship with Cash Out. And you will learn that all of these girls believed that they were in a relationship with Cash Out. All of them learned and felt as though he loved them, or they were his girlfriend, or they were his wife, or soon to be wife. All of that. And Deanna Sanders will talk to you about her physical abuse at the hands of this woman. You will have corroboration. You will have the testimony will be supported by a mountain of evidence, text messages, financial records, witness accounts, victim testimony, all of it pointing to the same conclusion. The defendants work together, exploiting human lives for profit. Now, the court already instructed the burden is on us, it's on the state. The defendants have no burden whatsoever. They don't have to put up a scintilla of evidence at all. But I want to inform you to be mindful of the distractions, to not go down the rabbit holes. The evidence will be the evidence.
Almost objectionable.
Copious notes. We'll be here for a while. So you may not remember something from the first day to the last day. This evidence will be disturbing. I will admit the details will be hard to listen to and difficult, but they are necessary. Because at the end of this trial, the only conclusion the evidence will support is that the defendants ran a criminal enterprise that trafficked human beings. Defendants Taylor and defendants Gibson even sodomized and raped one of the victims. And this pattern of criminal behavior must be brought to light. And the defendants must be held accountable. You will learn that there is nothing that is concealed that will not be disclosed or hidden, and that all will be made known. What has been done and said in the dark will be heard in the daylight. And what has been whispered in the ear in the inner rooms will be proclaimed from this witness stand. I will come back to you at the end of this case. And we will talk about all the evidence you heard. And we will review all the applicable law. And I will come back and ask you to find all of the defendants guilty. Thank you for your attention.
All right. Mr. Matthews, on behalf of Mr. Gibson, would you like to offer this jury an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You have the floor to do so at this time, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you recognize that person? Now, I might be wrong, but weren't he in the YSL RICO as well with his son? Good defense team, as I recollect. I just don't remember his name.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I want to take this opportunity to thank you in advance for your time and your attention that you have given to us for these last 7 or 8 days and getting you all selected. We have selected the jury that is the fairest jury to hear this case. I have an opportunity and a privilege and an honor to represent Mr. John Michael Gibson, along with myself and Attorney Careton Matthews Jr. You have been
Mr. Matthews,
ladies and gentlemen, to hear and listen to evidence and law in this case. Trial of John Michael Gibson, aka Cash Out. Who is John Michael Gibson? He's 34 years old. He's an American rapper. He was born in Columbus, Georgia. He moved to the Atlanta area as a teen. Came from humble beginnings. He moved to Atlanta, Georgia, living with his mother and his siblings east side of Atlanta, and he developed a love for music. He worked hard in the development of his craft. He didn't allow his humble beginnings, he did not allow where he was born, he did not allow his circumstances to stop his dreams. What were his dreams, ladies and gentlemen? His dreams were to write music, to write lyrics, become an artist, sell records, to do concerts. Through his hard work, through his dedication, through his sacrifice, that came to fruition. He went in the studio right here in the Atlanta area, started working, started putting his talent to work, putting his hard work and his sacrifice to effort. And that effort began to pay off. So he was 21 years old when music executive L.A. Reid invited him to New York City, along with his local management, to be signed. Mr. Gibson, he performed for L.A. Reid up in New York City. When he performed for them, they spent the entire day talking in a boardroom with industry executives. And they signed John Michael Gibson, Cash Out, Epic Records. When they signed Mr. Gibson, his first major song was a song by the name of Cash It Out. It was released in March 2012. It peaked at number 36 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was runner-up in the hip-hop genre, in the hip-hop department. And it topped as hot rap songs. Mr. Gibson toured all over the nation. Every city, every state. He was famous.
Rhonda Hall, this is Fulton County.
He was known.
Fulton County, Georgia. It's a new Fani Willis RICO trial.
Summer long, all year long. And he did well for himself. He didn't just stop with making that one single. He made another single, released it in 2012, featuring Wale. He made another single in 2012 called She's Working. These are songs that were played everywhere. Single released in 2014, still working. Released an album in 2014, Let's Get It. Features with Wiz Khalifa, Ty Dolla, French Montano, Rich Homie Quan, Waka Flocka. These are not just local artists, these are national artists that Mr. Gibson was working with and worked with. These are 12 tracks. This is a full album, working. These songs aren't making themselves. Released another album in 2014, featuring Snoop Dogg, Rich the Kid, DJ Bobby Black. He worked with these artists. In November of 2014, released another album, at 11 tracks. 2014, another album, It's My Time. Keisha, another one, 2015, 17 tracks. Working, honing his craft, touring, taking care of himself. This is the house that Cash built. 2015, 8 tracks. Tracks or songs. Born for This, featuring Rich Homie Quan. Released in 2016. Song called Lil Baby. Released in 2016. Ran Up a Check featuring Lil Yachty. Again in 2016. Working. And the list continues to go on. 2016. 2017. 2019. 2020. Those are all songs, albums, Mr. Gibson working, taking care of his business, and building his craft. Now, we are now here in this trial. He's been charged with count 1, a RICO. There's no conspiracy here. There's no criminal enterprise, and there's no structure to any criminal organization. The evidence will show that there was no organization that resulted in structure, that resulted in there being a scheme, meetings, officers, the things that you would see in a corrupt, criminal, mafia-style organization that RICO was built for. The evidence is going to show that this goes back, in terms of this indictment, from 2013, 10, 12 plus years ago, to 21. The evidence is going to show that this was put together in a RICO case. They put this together. Now let's talk about some of these persons that you will hear from. Now the allegation, ladies and gentlemen, is that Talicia Dewberry pimped and pandered. She was interviewed by members of the district attorney's office several years later. 6, 7 years later. 22 maybe, 2022. And you will hear her tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that it was not Mr. Gibson, that it's this girl named Raven. That I went to high school with. So I encourage you to follow along and listen to what comes out. It's not a rabbit hole. It's not distractions. It's not going to be any of that. It's going to be asking questions and getting answers. It's this girl named Raven I went to high school with. You're not going to hear that Mr. Gibson recruited her, enticed her to be pimped or pandered. Jessica McQuarrie. Keep in mind the dates. 2013, 2014. So the evidence is going to show that she was interviewed in 2022, 8 years later. You will hear that she moved to Georgia from Indiana to be with a man named James Jefferson. She did not come to Georgia to be with John Michael.
No, that would be a federal RICO if that was the case,
You will
because it
hear
would
that she was in
be
communication with
cross
her mother,
state.
Christine Spurlock. There was no pimping or pandering, no simple battery. So you listen to it. Some of it may be hard to hear. Our job is not to be brutal. Our job is not to demean. Our job is to get the information. To get the information so that you can hear it. And so that you can evaluate it. Dominique Wojciechowski, still in 2015 now. Interviewed when? 2022. See the trend? You're going to see the trend. 2022. You're going to be asking yourself these questions. You're all being interviewed around the same time. I will ask you to follow this case. You will not find any proof that Mr. Gibson committed a sex trafficking on Dominique Wojciechowski. Frederica Spencer and Talithia Wright. I put them together, ladies and gentlemen, because they were together. They were together. The evidence is going to show that they were together when they came to Georgia from Alabama. You're going to hear, ladies and gentlemen, that they didn't come here because Mr. Gibson asked them to come here. You're going to hear that they came to Georgia because Deanna Sanders asked them to come to Georgia. And look at the date, August 1 to August 13. They were interviewed when? 2022. One in April, one in August. Now, when we get them on the stand, and when they come to sit and take this witness stand, we're going to talk. We're going to have some conversation. What did they tell the police that morning? You will hear evidence that they're going to tell the police that they were robbed by 3 men at the Delk Road Baymont Inn. But you may hear something different when they take the stand. You may hear that they may say that they were raped by a guy or 2 guys. And we're going to talk about all those things. Because you will have an opportunity to listen to the evidence. You will have an opportunity to weigh the evidence. You will have an opportunity to listen to and evaluate credibility. And you will do that. There was no pimping and there was no pandering by Mr. John Michael Gibson. of Frederica Spencer and Talithia Wright. Jasmine Brown. Mr. Gibson is charged with trafficking Jasmine Brown on March 27, 2018. March 28, 18. She comes into this courtroom and you talk to her and she talks to you and she tells you what she tells you. Then we're going to compare what she tells you to what she's told other people. You'll have an opportunity to listen to the evidence. You will have an opportunity to weigh the evidence. You will have an opportunity to weigh the credibility. And you're going to learn that Jasmine Brown is her own person. She did what she wanted. You'll have an opportunity to see text messages. So we're going to go through it. When we go through it, you'll have an opportunity to listen to the evidence. You'll have an opportunity to weigh the evidence. You will have an opportunity to weigh credibility. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard a very long indictment being read. You heard that indictment being read. There were multiple counts in the indictment. And in that indictment, which is not evidence, but it's a document that they put together, being the district attorney's office. You'll have an opportunity to listen to the evidence. You'll have an opportunity to weigh the evidence. You'll have an opportunity to weigh credibility. Count 24, they're charging Mr. Gibson with aggravated assault. They're saying that Mr. Gibson struck Miss Brown with a belt that likely caused seriously bodily injury. Then if you just walk a few steps down the road through the path of the indictment, and you'll stumble upon the same allegation charging Mr. Gibson with the same conduct, and they chose to charge it as simple battery now, count 30. Beating with the belt. This is their document that they charged Mr. Gibson with. You'll have an opportunity to make it make sense in their indictment. Which is it? Is it either? How can it be both? Why did they put them both in there? We're going to talk about all those things. I want you to listen carefully. You will not find any belt in evidence. You will not find a picture of a belt in evidence. You will not find a description in any paperwork of a belt. Now, part of this case charged Mr. Gibson with keeping a place of prostitution. They're saying that on June 7th at 737 Alpha Road, that this place was a place to practice prostitution. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that there was a search warrant that was conducted at this address. You will not hear any evidence that in the search of this location that they found condoms, lubricants, baby oil, no surveillance equipment. You're not going to hear any evidence that there were printed materials promoting illegal services, no ledgers or appointment books, no controlled substances. In the search warrant, they're going to say he fed them drugs. Then they charged Mr. Gibson with willful obstruction on that day in June of 2019. They're saying he refused to come out. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that he was in the bed. The evidence is going to show that they used some type of tear gas or some other technique or tactic, and that there was gas in the room. There will be evidence that he complied and came out. They charged him with willful obstruction. Ladies and gentlemen, they charged Mr. Gibson with possession of a firearm during the commission or attempt to commit a felony on June 6, 2019 through June 7, 2019. They alleged that Mr. Gibson had on him or within arm's reach a handgun during the commission of a felony against and involving the person of another. The person of another, you will learn that it says trafficking a person for sexual servitude. But the evidence, ladies and gentlemen, will show that the only people in the residence at the time was Mr. Gibson and Miss Adams. The evidence will show that there was no person that alleged to have been trafficked was inside the residence or on the property. So the evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that a gun, but there's no alleged trafficked person in the residence. There's no alleged trafficked person on the property. But they find a gun, and they say, oh, it's in possession of a firearm during the commission or attempted commission of trafficking a person. Yeah, this is going to show otherwise on that day. Jordan Adams, ladies and gentlemen, January 11, 2019 through January 12, 2019. They are alleging, ladies and gentlemen, that Mr. Gibson trafficked by coercion, that he physically confined her and restrained her. That's count 14. And that he raped her on count 10. And that he committed aggravated sodomy, alleging that he forced her to have oral sex on him. That's what's being alleged on January 11th, January 12th, 2019. However, ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to point in another direction. What direction, ladies and gentlemen, is it going to point? Where is it going to lead us? Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to show that Jordan Adams, she was handed a folder with 6 photographs. And of those 6 photographs, ladies and gentlemen, it included a picture of Mr. Tyrone Gibson, amongst 5 others. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Adams picked out a totally different person
Uh-oh.
that she said most like cash out. Now, the allegations is that she was sexually assaulted all night long by Mr. Gibson, Mr. Taylor. But she picks out photograph of someone totally different who is not John Michael Gibson. And on it, she writes, most like Cash App. But it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. It goes farther. In her recorded interview, the day she spoke with the police, the question was asked, well, what did Cash Out look like? Now, ladies and gentlemen, you guys have been here for 7 or 8 days. We're all human. We all have eyes. Our eyes have vision. And you've had an opportunity to see Mr. Gibson. You all came in here, you looked at Mr. Gibson. You looked at Mr. Taylor. You looked at Ms. Smith. And you eyeballed. Because that's just human nature. So they asked the question, what did Cash Out look like? Said he's tall. She said maybe 6 feet. 6'2". These are her words. But it doesn't stop there, ladies and gentlemen. The evidence is going to show that it goes farther. There was DNA evidence. You're going to hear from Ashley Hinkle. She's a forensic biologist with the GBI. So there was a kit, a sexual assault kit. And this is right after. There's a sexual assault kit that was done. It was preserved. And it was ultimately sent to GBI. And then one day, ladies and gentlemen, they got a Q-tip and they asked Mr. Gibson to open his mouth, and they swabbed the inside of his jaw. And when they did that, they preserved that. And then they sent it to GBI. So now they have the kit that they got from Miss Adams. And now they have the swabbing from Mr. Gibson. And what does the GBI do? What does Ms. Hinkle do? What does the forensic biologist do? They do their science. When they do their science, they offer a report. And that report comes back, ladies and gentlemen, and we have an opportunity to read the report. And the evidence, ladies and gentlemen, is going to show that John Michael Gibson is excluded from the data obtained from the major contributor genotype obtained from the second fraction from the vaginal vestibule swab. 27, 2021. Mr. Gibson is charged with human trafficking and pimping of Kiara Adams for the purposes of prostitution. And this is in conjunction with a Gwinnett County case. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that that case was dismissed at the preliminary hearing in Gwinnett County. Sean Torrey Talbot, July 1, 2020 through July 11, 2020. We charged Mr. Gibson with trafficking through the use of deception and coercion, pimping, and pandering, keeping a place of prostitution, going back to that Alfred Road address.
Well, if what he states here is correct, that the test of DNA excluded the defendant, why is it a charge? If the alleged victim herself pointed to a person who looks nothing like Cash Out, why is he charged? Well, welcome to Fani Willis School of Prosecution, where facts don't matter and RICO rules. Now, this is opening statements. You still have to wait for this evidence to be presented by the people who actually handled the evidence.
Now, what is the evidence going to show? The evidence is going to show that Sean Torrey Talbot got in her vehicle, ladies and gentlemen. She's 32 years old, and that she drove herself to Georgia from Texas in her own vehicle, with her own money, and with her dog. And she's 32 years old, not 18. This is not a case about minors. This is a case about adults. 32 years old, ladies and gentlemen. For 10 days, that's what they're saying, that he trafficked her. The evidence is going to show that Mr. Tyrone Gibson, John Michael Gibson, did not traffic Shantori Talbot. And we'll get into it. You'll have an opportunity to listen to the evidence, weigh the evidence, and weigh the credibility. We've already talked about the Gwinnett County charges. Now, you may hear jail calls associated with this case.
Oh, great. Jail calls.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, you heard State talk about co-conspirators. Well, I don't know if they're co-conspirators or not. That's going to be for you to determine. That's what you're here to do. That's how they are being labeled. Kiara Adams, Deanna Sanders, you will have an opportunity to listen to the evidence on them. You're going to have an opportunity to listen to the evidence on them. You will have an opportunity to weigh the credibility. You will hear that they, on this indictment, you're going to hear that they were charged. Now, you heard the state of Georgia say, well, there have been no promises made. Well, we're going to get into whether there were promises made. We're going to get into whether they made proffers, whether they made statements to the district attorney's office, who was present, what were they facing.
I've said this before and I will say it again. Prison snitches has everything to gain by lying in court. Everything. Because if they're not believed, they are right back where they started. If they are believed, they got sentence reduced or even release. They have everything to gain by lying in court, and they lie in court. There are tens of thousands of examples through the Innocence Project about people who showed up, said something interesting, and they more or less coached into what they then said on the stand. I'm amazed it is even close to being allowed as evidence in a court of law.
You're going to hear all of that. You're going to have an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to determine what was their motivation in what they said. What was their interest in what they said? Was there anything, or is there anything over their head? Or do they have to come in here and talk in order for things to go smoothly with their case? You'll have an opportunity to judge credibility. You'll have an opportunity to determine those things that motivate people to say whatever they're going to say. Then when it's all said and done, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to ask you to weigh the evidence, listen to the evidence, judge credibility. This is a very long indictment, which is not evidence. There are a lot of witnesses. But if you stay with us, which we know you will, we'll come back later. We'll tie it all together. When we tie it all together, we're going to come back and we're going to ask you to find Mr. John Michael Gibson. Michael. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. Mr. Francis, on behalf of Ms. Smith.
All right. Next, defense opening statement. LTO, Fustercluck is legendary. Yeah. I assume this will be a complete Fustercluck. And from what I heard from the first defense opening, if they can back this up, it's going to be another absolute mentally ill prosecution from Fani Willis' office.
Leonard Smith is not guilty of charges against her in this indictment. Leonard Smith is not guilty of charges against her in this indictment. You will not see any evidence that Leonard Smith coerced anybody into a life of sexual service. She did not deceive anyone into a life of sexual service. She did not gain financially from anyone's sexual servitude. She did not subject anyone to sexual servitude. She did not harbor anyone in sexual servitude. And she did not maintain anyone in sexual servitude. All of the witnesses that will come and talk to you have already made statements. And when you listen to those statements, what you'll hear is, they sort of barely knew this. She was around, but they sort of barely knew. No one's going to say that she did anything forced them into sex. You're not going to see a single text message that illustrates that Linda Smith forced anyone into sex. You're not going to see an Instagram message. You're not going to see a video. You're not going to see a Facebook message. You're not going to see anything that she forced anyone to see anyone into a life of sex. Linda Smith is not a part of a group of individuals committing crime. She's not. She's not. There's going to be no evidence that she had any intent to be a part of anyone, that she had any knowledge of any organized crime, any racketeering, anything of that nature. Linda Smith received some cash checks from a few people over a period of years. She received cash checks from Deanna for a couple of reasons. Deanna rented a room from Linda Smith with her own money. There's even a check that she wrote for Linda Smith. And Kiara used Linda Smith's car and wrecked it. And so, as a result of that, she cashed after the money for her car. So, she is not gaining anything from any enterprise. She's not part of any enterprise. All of the statements that were made to law enforcement, when people were arrested, in this case was investigated, barely mentioned Linda Smith. Evidence will not be there. You'll see it for yourself. And at the end of the evidence, we ask that you find Linda Smith not guilty of all charges.
All right. Mr. Hoover?
Your Honor, let's take down the PowerPoint together.
Sure. It's the PowerPoint. If it's up, will you take it down? Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tyrone Taylor didn't rape Jordan Adams. Tyrone Taylor didn't force himself on Jordan Adams. Tyrone Taylor didn't force Jordan Adams into prostitution. Tyrone Taylor is not guilty of what the state has charged him. Now, this case starts with Jordan Adams way before January 11th and January 12th. This actually starts a couple months earlier in Cobb County. You're going to hear evidence and testimony that Jordan Adams was found under the influence of cocaine, driving a vehicle with her daughter in the back seat. She was arrested for that. Because she was arrested, DFACS gave custody of her daughter to her mother. You're also going to hear evidence that while Jordan Adams was out with that case pending, she stayed in the house with her parents and her daughter. Her father found a syringe full of drugs in the same house her daughter was in. You're going to hear evidence that because she, once again, endangered the life of her daughter, her father kicked her out of the house. Fast forward to January 11th. A couple months later, Jordan Adams happens to be at a gas station. Supposedly, she's telling people that she's going to the airport because she doesn't have anywhere to go. She goes to the gas station, runs into Tyrone Taylor. Goes up to Tyrone, hey, can you give me a couple bucks so I can get to the airport? Tyrone says, yes, I will help you out. Gives her a couple dollars. Tyrone says, hey, can I have your phone number? Jordan says, yes. Willingly gave Tyrone her phone number after he gave her a couple dollars. Fast forward a couple hours, Tyrone's texting her, hey, what's up? Hey, what are you doing? Where you at? Jordan Adams says, I can't talk right now because I don't have a place to stay. I'm a little busy. I don't have a place to stay. So Tyrone goes, hey, if you need some help, you can come stay with us for a little while. Jordan Adams says, okay, tells Tyrone where she is. Tyrone doesn't have a car of his own at the time, so he sends a friend to pick her up. Jordan Adams willingly gets into this vehicle. No one forced him to. Jordan Adams and the friend drives Jordan Adams to the Airway Hotel where Tyrone's staying. Jordan Adams willingly gets out of the vehicle. No one forced her to. Jordan Adams goes up to the door, knocks on it, and willingly goes into Tyrone's room. No one forced her to. Now, once in the room, drugs are there. Everyone's, or not everyone,
People are doing drugs, stuff is happening, that's it. That's all we know as of right now. Fast forward, Jordan starts to tell this story about what happens in that room, and depending on who she's talking to, her story changes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear the evidence is going to show you that the very first person that Jordan was communicating with was her mother via text message. The evidence is going to show you Jordan never said, "Hey, Mom, I'm being raped by 2 men. Send help." You're never going to see evidence that says, "Hey, Mom, I'm being tortured and kidnapped by 2 men. This is where I am. Hey, Mom, I'm being held on my own. I have nowhere to go, nothing to do. Please send help." What you're going to hear is Jordan said things like, "Don't call anyone because I'll go to jail." Or, "Mom, I'm going to call a friend to come pick me up. I'll take care of that on my own." Or, "Mom, don't say anything that's going to get me in trouble." The state wants you to believe that Tyrone Taylor and Mr. Gibson are raping Jordan Adams from 6 to 12 hours, torturing her, abusing her, kidnapped her. The very first person she talks to about this, and she basically says, "Don't call anyone because I'm going to get arrested." Fast forward to January 12th when she's talking to officers. Second story. Second time she has an opportunity to say what actually happened. Now the evidence is going to show you that she tells officers as soon as she walks into that room, Tyrone made her take a shower, and then the rape started happening immediately. She says it's Tyrone is the only one raping her, and basically for about 3 to 4 hours, it's Tyrone continuously. He would get up, he would stop for a minute, and then he'd go right back to her. First time she talks to an officer, that's what she says. Then she adds in, "Well, you know what? It happened up to about 3 a.m., then Mr. Gibson shows up. And now it's 2 men raping her from 3 a.m. to 9 a.m. that same morning." So in this story, she tells the cops that 2 men are brutally raping her, torturing her, physically holding her down to the point where she can't move or breathe. They're choking her to where she can't move or breathe. She is scratching them, she is fighting them, but she can't stop. Sometimes
Yeah, my monetization is fucked.
Sometimes they rape her one by one. Sometimes they use condoms. Sometimes they didn't. And every time one of them would stop, they would give her cocaine. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first time she talks to an officer, she says, 2 men raped me from 9 to 12 hours straight. They never really stopped because one of them were always doing something. But when one would pause, I would have cocaine. So she's getting raped, tortured, and beaten and drugged for 9 to 12 hours straight. A month later, she's talking to other officers. This time, she tells officers, "Well, when I got to the room, I took a shower. Tyrone didn't rape me for the first few hours. The rape didn't start until 3 a.m. when Mr. Gibson shows up." Story's already starting to change again. This time, she goes on to say, "Yes, they both raped me for all this time. They drugged me the entire time. I couldn't do anything about it. But I was scratching them. I was doing all that, but I couldn't do anything else about it." The first time they talked to the officers, Jordan Adams said, "Well, all I saw was cocaine. They kept giving me cocaine." The second time they talked to the officers, Jordan Adams, "Oh no, there was cocaine, there was heroin, there was marijuana, there was vodka, there was tequila. We were doing everything." Her story completely changes every single time. What we do know at some point, Jordan is not in that room with Tyrone. She's not in that room with Mr. Gibson. Jordan, for 3 hours, let Jordan tell you, she is walking up and down the street from the hotel to the sick bay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is why this is so important. While Jordan Adams was walking up and down the street from the sick bay, she was by herself. We have no idea where Mr. Gibson is because she kind of forgets about him and doesn't say anything. But she says Tyrone was in the hotel room. So Miss Adams is walking up and down the street by herself with a cell phone. She goes to the sick bay. We know the day before she was 100% okay with begging people for money so she can get help. But now, fast forward, she's been raped by 2 men she doesn't know for 6 to 12 hours, depending on who she's talking to. She goes to the sick bay. She doesn't tell anybody she got raped. She doesn't go inside to the employee and say, "Hey, I'm being raped. I've been kidnapped. They're forcing me to prostitute." She doesn't do that. For 3 hours, she's walking up and down that street, seeing people, communicating with people. She never once said, "Help me. I have been raped. I am being tortured. I've been kidnapped. They're forcing me into prostitution." Ladies and gentlemen, you're also going to hear that during this time, Jordan Adams runs into the hotel manager. The manager goes out, What are you doing? Why are you walking around? Jordan Adams does not say, help me, I have been raped. She does not say, help me, I have been kidnapped. I have been tortured. They are beating me and forcing me into prostitution. Jordan says, you know what? I'm going to go get some cigarettes. That's why I'm walking, so I'm just going to get cigarettes. Those 2 times, Jordan could have told somebody, I need help. Again, she had her cell phone this entire time. Tyrone's nowhere around. Mr. Gibson disappears. She never called a family member and said, hey, Mom, this is where I am. Come get me. I've been raped. She never called a friend. Hey, this is where I am. Location drop. Come get me. I've been raped. Citgo gas station. Doesn't say a word. Hotel manager. Doesn't say a word. Has a cell phone in her hand by herself. Doesn't say a word. But the state wants you to believe that 2 men raped her for half a day, up to 12 hours, and she doesn't leave. Just to give you an idea, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to see that the Citgo is half a mile away from the hotel, the Airway Motel, where it used to be. That's 2,640 feet. Takes about 10 minutes to walk there. You're also going to see the Atlanta Police Department Zone 4 precinct was 410 feet away from that hotel. It takes less than 2 minutes to get there. And what's crazy, to get to the Citgo from the hotel, she passed the precinct. So what that means, for 3 hours, she's walking up and down the street, past the police precinct, but she never goes in. She never goes up there and says, hey, these 2 guys are raping me. These 2 guys are forcing me into prostitution. These 2 guys are beating me with the butt of a gun, and they're torturing me, and I can't breathe. But the state wants you to believe that they raped her for 12 hours. She's by herself the entire time. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you're also going to hear testimony that allegedly Tyrone, after he forced her out into prostitution, said, if a man picks you up, take him to the Quality Inn. The Quality Inn is right next door to the precinct. Once again, she has an opportunity to go to another hotel to tell somebody, away from these 2 men, I'm getting raped and abused. She didn't do it. There's a reason she didn't do it, ladies and gentlemen, because she got kicked out of her house while she was out with a pending case for drugs, doing drugs and making money the only way she knows how. That's why she was out there in Fulton Industrial. But the state wants you to believe that 2 men raped her, tortured her, beat her, choked her, suffocated her, crushed her body, and drugged her the entire time for 6 to 12 hours. Yet Jordan Adams still had enough power and strength and energy to walk up and down the street for 3 hours and didn't tell anybody about that. With the cell phone in her hand, nobody around. Now, at some point, an officer is going to ask her, well, why didn't you just walk away? Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Adams' response to that is because they had my stuff in that room. The officer said, what was the stuff? Jordan Adams said, some of my clothes and a phone charger. The state wants you to believe that 2 men raped her, beat her, and tortured her, and kidnapped her, and forced her into prostitution for half a day, up to 12 hours, and the reason she didn't leave was because she didn't have all her clothes and a phone charger. Does that make sense? Absolutely not. Now, Mr. Matthews touched a little bit on DNA evidence, and he was right, the same kit was done, just like they swabbed Mr. Gibson's mouth, they swabbed Mr. Taylor's mouth. What that means is they put a little swab in there, get your DNA, send it off to be tested. Ladies and gentlemen, through this investigation, officers also documented and collected gray bedding from the Airway Motel room, black bedding from the Airway Motel room, 1 used condom, swabs from both of their mouths, the rape kit. Now, with the rape kit, this is very important. They collected swabs from the vaginal vault, swabs from the vaginal vestibule, anus swabs, oral cavity swabs, inner thigh swabs, left side nail swabs, right side nail swabs, known head hair, left side nail clippings, and right side nail clippings. They collected all of that evidence, and what you are not going to hear in this trial at all is that they can find Tyrone Taylor's DNA on him. A man that raped her, beat her, and tortured her for 6 to 12 hours, depending on what she says and who she's talking to, They don't find DNA. Ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to see any pictures in this trial to where she's beaten. You're not going to see pictures in this trial where she's scratched. She only had a hangnail at this point. She's not bleeding. She's not cut up. And she has the energy to walk around after being raped for half a day. You're not going to see any of that. On top of that, you're not going to have DNA that says this is Tyrone Taylor's, but they want you to believe the two men raped this young lady for 12 hours, abused her, kidnapped her, and forced her to walk the street. You've heard them present their case. I just ask you, please listen to everything presented to you in this courtroom for the next few weeks. Not only do you get to hear what our witnesses say, you actually get to see them when they say it. That's really important. Because I'm pretty sure Jordan Adams is going to get up here, she's going to start crying. You don't have to worry about just the crying. You get to see and hear everything that's going on. Before you make your final decision, please take your notes, write everything down, pay attention, focus on what you see and what you hear, and I'm confident you will find Tyrone Taylor not guilty of all the charges the state is putting.
Thank you. All right. Let me just say this to all of you. If at any point you have to use the restroom, don't sit there uncomfortable. Don't even let me know. Okay? With that, are your first words?
State calls.
All right, that was the opening statements, and they go directly into first witness, an officer. Well, listening to the opening statement. Now, I'm not entirely sure of the last defense opening statement. It's not unusual for a victim of rape to not go to the police, especially if they are a working girl. Contrary, it is more or less the standard. So I'm not entirely sure, but so they could have left that one out, in my opinion. Hey, Dave, thank you. Thank you. That's very nice of you. It's a dog saying, ha ha ha. Yeah, I'm doing a new RICO trial, and a RICO trial that will get my streams demonetized because it's about SA crimes. Yeah. Well, here we go. First witness. Let's see who this. Oh.
Okay. We need a break for a few minutes. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
we'll take 5 minutes.
All right, for the jury.
Okay. Okay, George left the building.
How are you doing?
And she's back. That is Judge Melanie Leftridge. She has been a Superior Court judge since 2021. Before that, she was a magistrate judge in Fulton County for 13 years. Before that, she was an assistant district attorney in Fulton County. So she was a prosecutor. All right.
I can't even shoot over that way. They love.
Yeah.
That is a giant jug of water.
That one.
Do we need to have everybody involved?
Oh, sidebar. Sidebar counter. won! Right. I guess there will not be a first witness today. Because here is where the stream ends. All right, let's check. Fox 5 Atlanta. Live. Anything else? Nope. That was it. All right, that was the opening statements from the prosecution and from the defense. We still haven't heard Prosecutor Love's voice, which is a plus, for me at least. Let's see here. What did you think? In the poll, you said who had the best opening statements? And prosecution, 22%. Defense, 78%. All right. That, well, we will see if this was a mistake from me or not. But it's Fulton County. It's a RICO trial. If anybody should stream this, it's this guy. 2.5 years of the YSL RICO. Day in, day out, gavel to gavel. I covered that damn trial. From jury selection to final plea deal. So yeah, tell your friends, tell your co-workers if they want to see a new RICO trial. Go watch me. Okay. This will be interesting. Especially the parts where this alleged SA the alleged victim didn't saw a photo lineup of 6 photos where Mr. Gibson was one of them. And she picked out another person who looks nothing like him. And that's one of the charges. So yeah, this will be interesting. This will be interesting. We will be back tomorrow with this trial, where I will start around lunch because I have work to do and then I need a nap. So we will start tomorrow at lunch around 12 a.m. or 12. What is it? 12 p.m. 12 at noon Eastern time, where we will play what's happened in 1.25, skip the pauses, skip the breaks and stuff, and then we will catch up eventually. All right. Thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you for allowing me to do this. And yeah, it's a new RICO trial. And you are here with the RICO law tuber. All right, folks. You all have a good day. And I will, by the way, watch my other stuff. Because YouTube has decided they will not promote me in any way, shape, or form in this segment. So help me out here. Help me out here. And yeah, watch my stuff. Give me the thumbs up. All right. That is what I had for you. I will see you all back here tomorrow at noon. Bye-bye. What's going on? Ah.